Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel, everyone. Great to have everybody here. Hello, new viewers and Maverick family. It has been an eventful news day. Mark Carney, Canada's Prime Minister, facing First Nations leaders at a major projects summit, all related to that legislation the federal government managed to get passed to really push through major infrastructure projects, including pipelines. But of course, nothing in Canada can ever be that easy. So we'll bring you the latest on that. Epstein makes the Russia hoax seem like nothing. The fallout from all of this continues with Elon Musk today, proceeding with another flurry of Epstein posting activity. We'll bring you the latest on that. Plus, Felix Baumgartner, supersonic daredevil. That's the guy who went up in that balloon, broke the world record for the highest skydive in history, and broke the sound barrier on his way back to Earth in a spacesuit. He's passed away in a paragliding accident. We'll tell you about that. I think actually paid tribute to the man. It made an impression on me, that particular stunt, if you want to call it that. Just showed the extreme limits that human beings can go to, the things people can achieve if they set their mind to it. Whatever you kind of set your goals on, it seems like not like the sky is really, truly no longer the limit. And he proved that. But today, no longer with us. So we'll just reflect on that a little bit tonight. And we have a whole lot more as well. Just a lot of different stories. Kind of a strange news conference today in the White House with the usual press gallery asking questions of Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, and there was a really kind of a weird question about the Unabomber. So we'll try to share that with you today as well. Things just kind of went a little bit weird, but hey, weird is just kind of par for the course these days. We'll get into the weirdness and the top news stories of the day on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, so we're going to start with the Epstein stuff because it's just dominating the news cycle, and there is a lot of weirdness around it, strangeness, a lot of pressure. It's just amplifying the cracks in the MAGA political movement. President Trump today dismissing calls from within his own party for a special counsel to investigate the Epstein files related to the late financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. In remarks in the Oval Office, Trump sidestepped questions about appointing a special counsel, stating that, quote, "I have nothing to do with it," before quickly moving on. Now, he keeps trying to dismiss this stuff, but it isn't working. He keeps saying nothing to see over here. He is supporting Pam Bondi, but this seems to be his Achilles heel, his kryptonite. If I can just go back and reference what we were saying yesterday. The push for further investigation comes as some prominent Trump supporters, including Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, and others, have demanded more transparency into the Justice Department's handling of Epstein's case. The department recently confirmed Epstein's 2019 death was by suicide. We saw Kash Patel and Dan Bongino double and triple and quadruple down on that. And the White House has stated that no client list or additional incriminating documents would be released, sparking frustration among many parts of Trump's base. Well, part of that base, which Trump apparently doesn't really want any support from anymore, says he doesn't need them. In fact, called a lot of, probably half his base, stupid for falling for this, what he's now calling a hoax orchestrated by Democrats, which seems weird in itself, but he's urging supporters to focus on his administration's achievements instead of the Epstein files controversy. He expressed strong support for Attorney General Pam Bondi today, saying she's done a fantastic job, despite criticism from figures like Laura Loomer, who has been calling for Bondi's resignation, and a special counsel, which Trump says no to today. And then we've got, of course, this whole thing with Elon Musk as well, not to mention what's going on with Dan Bongino. But here's a headline over on ABC highlighting what Musk has been doing on social media, calling the whole thing a cover-up.
Elon Musk, Will, is among those that continues to criticize the administration, posting a series of tweets calling it a cover-up, obviously, and even writing, "Wow, amazing that Epstein killed himself and Ghislaine is in federal prison for a hoax." This is just adding more fuel to the fire, right? And of course, you know, Elon owns X, so how do you see this, I guess, impacting the power of this story?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Elon Musk has an axe to grind with the president. He's had for a few weeks now, but he's really focusing on this issue. You'll recall a few weeks ago, he posted and then deleted kind of a bombshell allegation without any evidence necessarily, saying that the president and the administration were withholding these files because the president's name is in them. And now he's right back at it. He posted over 35 times over the last 24 hours, attacking the president, trying to ramp up these, claims and calls for these Epstein files to be released. But like you said, he's doing this on X. He's also speaking to the AI chatbot Grok, which is his chatbot, which is on X, and he's using a tool, that AI tool, which just announced a big deal with the Trump administration, this $200 million deal, where agencies across the government are going to be using Grok. So it's kind of this fascinating, almost, thumb in the eye to the president, where he's using the same tool that the president is actually paying him to use to attack him over these Epstein files.
Yeah. This is not going away. Also, a lot of old material aimed at Trump being recycled, including a video, which I'm not going to show you, of a woman accusing Trump of inappropriate sexual behavior at an Epstein party when the girl was supposed to be 13 years old. But highly suspect that video that originally came out, I think, way back in 2016. Somebody sent it to me today. Was that a trap? Was somebody trying to get me to run that? Yeah, running that thing, which is copyrighted material apparently, or was, because the person who was shopping it around or is trying to sell it to media back in 2016 wanted $1 million for it. And that in itself made it very suspect in terms of its credibility. Anyway, that's resurfaced and it's out there on social media. No bloody way am I running that. It's interesting to me, and I'm probably the only one you're ever going to hear this from right now, but I find it very interesting to see all of this blowing up right now when Trump is at a moment when he is pivoting on some of these big geopolitical issues, in particular Ukraine. The timing on this, to me, also highly suspect. Why is this happening? And the information, the propaganda machine is cranked right up on the guy right now. Why? Because Daddy Trump isn't doing what he's supposed to be doing after some people worked real hard to get him elected. Is that a possibility? I put that out there since there are all these other theories flowing or flying around. Of course, who are you going to blame? Mossad. Always blame Mossad. That's easy. And if not Mossad, the CIA or both. Well, we'll see how it plays out. With all of this stuff, I don't know if we're ever really going to know the truth, but I do know this. This is not going away. Look, I mean, every time you turn around right now on social media, Trump getting hammered, and he's targeted now. And this is the issue that has put a big chink in his armor, put a big scratch in his Teflon. You know, there he is, social media, recycling all those images of him and Epstein. And yeah, he clearly knew Epstein, being portrayed now by many in the media as being a guy who had a very close personal relationship, knew him very, very well. I can't say for sure. Trump has always said, you know, in my recent memory that didn't like the guy, knew him, but didn't really care for the guy, blah, blah, blah. But they're not letting Trump off the hook on this. And his own people, his own base, attacking him on it. And here's even Mike Pence, okay? Oh, yes. Maybe Trump could use a little support from Mike Pence now, but he's not getting it. This is these two guys talk about a crack in the MAGA foundation. Here it is right here on full display again.
The Jeffrey Epstein matter is a hoax. Last week, his Justice Department said there were more than 1,000 victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Last summer, Trump said he was open to declassifying all the relevant files and the Epstein client list, and that his suicide looked suspicious. How can all those things be true and it be a hoax? I don't understand where things stand with all this.
I think the time has come for the administration to release all of the files regarding Jeffrey Epstein's investigation and prosecution. It's important that we protect the names of the victims. They should be excluded from any disclosure. But whether or not the facts justify charges, I think that anyone who participated or was associated with this despicable man ought to be held up to public scrutiny.
One of the most aggressive investigative reporters in our country, Julie K. Brown, was on my show last night, and she said when the Justice Department last week said 1,000 victims, she said that was a higher number than she was familiar with and indicated to her that there have to be accomplices that some of the victims have named that worked with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And she said, shouldn't there be some inquiry into whether or not those people should be exposed to criminal prosecution? Well, do you agree with that?
I just think we ought to get the facts to the American people. I mean, I've always believed in transparency.
And when the president says it's all a hoax, what is he talking about?
Well, Jeffrey Epstein's prosecution began during the Bush administration. Continued.
He's blaming it on Democrats.
The Obama years.
It's not a hoax.
I know of no reason why this administration, once the victims' names are protected, should not release all all the files on Jeffrey Epstein.
There you go. Yeah, it seems like a reasonable thing to me at this point. I don't know. And today, very strange news conference, as I say, in the White House with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt today asked, why can't you just redact the names of the victims? And this is the response. Here we go.
What is stopping the administration from just redacting any sensitive information, grand jury information, and putting out what is appropriate so that the American people can decide and then let this story die?
Well, in terms of redactions or grand jury seals, those are questions for the Department of Justice. Those are also questions for the judges who have that information under a seal, and that would have to be requested, and a judge would have to approve it. That's out of the president's control.
What is...
Because we don't want to. Yeah, just very weird. Like there's something just seems totally off. It's just plain weird. And then you've got these Republicans pushing and Democrats as well, but a lot of Republicans joining Democrats pushing for, the release of more files. Here's Ron Wyden. Says the Treasury is sitting on a file that could expose Epstein's financial network, the key to a massive sex trafficking empire. Let's bring him up, see what he had to say. Okay, here we go.
There is an Epstein file down there at the Treasury Department, and it ought to be used as the foundation for a follow the money investigation. The reality is, you build a sex trafficking operation of the size that we know this was, there's a tremendous amount of money moving, and it ought to be followed up to see how it was handled.
Can you sort of touch on just the key findings in this most recent tranche of revelations that you guys have put out?
Well, the key finding, of course, is that this is all about sex trafficking, and you can't run a sex trafficking operation of this size without an enormous amount of money. And what we have shown is there are very substantial questions about whether that money was handled in an ethical and honest way.
I don't know. How are we? Just don't know. But here's Wyden speaking today. We'll get his formal address here, and he is making more specific reference to that money. Follow the money, they say, right? Well, that's what he's saying. Here's what his form. This is him in his formal statement.
Last year, the Biden administration allowed our investigators to look at portions of the file. We did that at the Treasury building. Here is what it says. Treasury's Epstein file details, Mr. President, 4,725 wire transfers. Let me repeat that. 4,725 wire transfers, adding up to nearly $1.1 billion flowing in and out of just one of Mr. Epstein's bank accounts. If you ask me, that is more than 4,000 potential lines of investigation right there. Hundreds of millions more flowed through other accounts. That's even a lot more to investigate. The file shows that Mr. Epstein used multiple Russian banks, which are now under sanctions, to process payments related to sex trafficking.
Isn't that interesting? He used Russian banks. Russian banks. But it's all Mossad. Okay. Let's take a little break. We're going to come back and continue with the weirdness.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. Hello again. Here we are. I'm going to kind of stick with the American stuff for a moment. I should note, too, that I don't know how significant this story is, but whenever it's the health of the president, it becomes sort of front page news. And the White House has announced today that President Trump has been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency, a common circulatory condition, following reports of swelling in his lower legs. Some media outlets are making a big deal out of it, other ones not making such a big deal out of it. Caroline Leavitt today in that weird news conference. I read a memo from Trump's physician, Dr. Sean Barbabella. I always want to say Barbarella, right? The Jane Fonda movie. Anyway, she said that the president underwent a comprehensive medical exam, including vascular studies and Doppler ultrasounds. After noticing the swelling, the tests have confirmed chronic venous insufficiency. It's a benign condition. It affects about 1 in 20 people, adults, especially people over the age of 70, where damaged leg veins struggle to return blood to the heart, causing pooling and swelling, and probably because he ate way too many Big Macs and drank way too much Diet Coke. But then I guess when it comes right down to it, the vast majority of people are guilty of abusing our bodies by ingesting large amounts of stuff that's just probably not very good for us, just like Donald Trump. Anyway, Leavitt emphasized that there's no evidence of more serious conditions like deep vein thrombosis, arterial disease, or heart failure, obviously, since he's still breathing, or kidney issues, and Trump remains, in her words, quote, excellent health with no discomfort. Yeah, he passed with flying colors. He's the most healthy president in the history of presidents, the likes of which you've never seen before. So Leavitt also addressed visible bruising on Trump's hands, or a hand, which was seen in recent photos that had been, we're told, covered up by makeup, attributing it to frequent handshaking and aspirin use as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regime. The announcement has sparked speculation online, with many questioning the timing of the disclosure amid these ongoing controversies like the Epstein files. The White House insists it's a routine health update shared for transparency. But don't you feel just a little bit sorry for him now? You know, even though he's like a poor guy, can't you just like leave him alone? He's got swollen ankles and everything. Trump's physician says the condition is manageable with treatments like compression therapy or leg elevation, and Trump continues his duties without interruption. He's a trooper, isn't he? Well, we'll keep you updated on all of that as the story unfolds. So all of that was going on. And then there was this kind of weird thing, kind of weird. Everything about today, well, a lot of things about today's news conference with Caroline Leavitt was pretty weird. So this was a weird question. Oh, I should say too, that there was a reporter who shouted out, since I have to get the words quite right. He said, will Ghislaine Maxwell be released since the whole thing has been, determined to be a hoax? It was a question that he shouted, but then it was dismissed. It was never answered. It just kind of came and went, and another reporter chimed in with a question before any kind of answer was offered up. That was just one kind of unusual moment. But then things kind of got really weird when this came up, this whole thing about the Unabomber. This is an old story. Anyway, let me play this clip. You'll understand when you hear it. It's like the timeline doesn't match up. It's about Trump's uncle, and it's just kind of weird conspiracy kind of stuff.
Andrew, go ahead.
So on Tuesday, the president told a very detailed story about his uncle, noted scientist John Trump, and Theodore Kaczynski, the late Unabomber. He said that Dr. Trump taught Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was not identified as the Unabomber until 1996, 11 years after John Trump passed away. It would have been impossible for John Trump to have ever discussed the Unabomber with the president. So what was he talking about? And I have one follow-up.
Andrew, with so many issues going on in the world, I'm a little bit surprised you would ask such a question, although I'm not sometimes coming from you, I will say, but I'm willing to give you an answer. Nevertheless, the president's uncle did, in fact, teach at MIT. He was a very intelligent professor. The president's very proud of his family. In fact, the president has a letter from his uncle on the MIT letterhead that sits in the Oval Office dining room. Maybe we'll let you see it sometime.
It's just, I don't envy anybody who has that job as press secretary. And I have to say, she's actually pretty good. You never know what somebody is going to throw at you. And like, who would expect that question today? Most people would be caught like a deer in the headlights. But no, she came back and she did give him an answer. She didn't address the Unabomber portion of it. She just says, yes, that's right. His uncle did teach at MIT. Pretty good answer. Pretty, nimble on her feet, and pretty quick-witted she is. She's a smart lady, and she does not have an easy job, especially dealing with Trump's escapades. We'll say that, okay? Oh man, what a tough gig. Question. Where was Mickey Mouse on Tuesday after somebody took a shot at the president? And do you think that he could be implicated in the assassination attempt? You just never know what's coming around the corner. So hats off to Caroline Leavitt and every other press secretary who has ever been in that position. Really tough gig. Very, very hard. Also today, the president put up this letter. Here it is here. I'll show it to you. To the president of Brazil in support of his ongoing legal problems. Trump did address it briefly yesterday when asked about it by a reporter. Well, today, here it is. Let's bring it up a little bit bigger here. Yeah, right there. There it is on Truth Social. And the letter reads, Dear Mr. Bolsonaro, I have seen the terrible treatment you are receiving at the hands of an unjust system turned against you. This trial should end immediately. I am not surprised to see you leading in the polls. You are a highly respected and strong leader who served your country well. I share your commitment to listening to the voice of the people, and I am very concerned about the attacks on free speech, both in Brazil and in the United States, coming out of the current government. He's worried about the attacks on free speech in the United States coming out of which government? The Brazilian government or the U.S.? Anyway, I thought he had restored free speech. Anyway, I have strongly voiced my disapproval both publicly and through our tariff policy. It is my sincere hope that the government of Brazil changes course. I think he's referring to the Brazilian government attacking free speech in the United States. Anyway, stops attacking political opponents and ends their ridiculous censorship regime. Right. I will be watching closely. Ooh, okay. Well, if he's watching closely, then the world better take note, because it's hard to rule the world, although Trump denies that is what he's trying to do. Let's bring up the clip which addresses this from that weird media conference today in the White House with, again, Caroline Leavitt running interference and defense for the President of the United States of America.
We'll take. Go ahead and then go ahead. Sure. I've never called on you. Why don't you go ahead? In the red tie.
Hello.
Dr. Harper behind.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Me. Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Caroline.
Yes, you. What's your name?
My name is Matias. Thank you.
What's your outlet?
I'm from Record TV, Brazil.
Great.
Brazil's President Lula recently said that President Trump was elected to govern the United States and not to act as the emperor of the world. And he also emphasized that Brazil is open to negotiation. I'd like to hear what you have to say about it, what the administration has to say about it, and specifically what areas are currently open to negotiation in the light of the 50% tariffs that were announced.
Ouch. Sure. The president is certainly not trying to be the emperor of the world. He is a strong president for the United States of America, and he's also the leader of the free world. And we've seen a great shift across the entire globe because of the strong leadership of this president. In regards to Brazil, the president sent a letter to Brazil announcing their new tariff percentage. He also directed our USTR ambassador, Jamison Greer, to launch an investigation of Brazil under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, designed to address unfair foreign practices that are affecting U.S. commerce. For years, we know Brazil's digital regulations and weak IP protections have undermined U.S. tech and innovative companies, and their tolerance of illegal deforestation and other environmental practices puts American producers, manufacturers, farmers, and ranchers who follow better environmental standards at a competitive disadvantage. So this president always acts in the best interest of the American people and the United States of America, and he will continue to do so. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you later.
Okay, so that was kind of a setup, I think, because last question, she throws it to that guy. I think she planned on doing that. This is why she's so good. And anybody worth their salt in that position would be doing this anyway. She had a prepared answer. She knew if she went to that guy, he would ask about that. Trump posts that letter. He was talking about it yesterday. So it's legitimate, but it's still kind of a setup. Yeah. But Brazilian President Lula responded swiftly to the letter, rejecting the letter as interference in Brazil's judicial system and vowing to retaliate with reciprocal tariffs. Yeah, like really, if you think about it, what business does Trump have intervening or trying to influence the legal system, a legal case of any kind in another country? Anyway, I guess he can have his opinion and issue letters if he wants to, but it depends on how you look at it. Government of Brazil looking at what Trump is doing as political interference. The move has sparked protests in Brazil, with some citizens burning effigies of Trump and Bolsonaro supporters as well. including his son Eduardo, praised the U.S. president's backing. So it depends again how you look at it. Political analysts suggest Trump's intervention could backfire, rallying nationalist sentiment behind Lula and complicating Bolsonaro's legal battles. So some would say that that Trump's activities and comments about Canada in the last election kind of handed the election to the Liberals, when he seemed to kind of want a conservative guy. Who knows, man? Is it like reverse psychology, 5D, 6D chess? I don't know. Who knows what the guy really wants? He's completely unpredictable. And today, also in that weird news conference, reference to Canada and interest rates in the U.S., kind of one leading into the other. But Caroline Leavitt being asked if it's even possible at this point for the Trump administration to reach a trade deal by the July 21st deadline that was agreed upon between Carney and Trump during the G7 summit in Canada just a few weeks ago. And well, this is the response that we got.
I want to give you a chance to respond to the CEO of NPR. She's claiming that the cuts to their
I
network will
am sorry.
be a real risk.
I should preface this before we get, this is actually, talking about the cuts in funding to National Public Broadcasting, PBS, NPR, National Public Radio. And it looks like it's really the end of the line for public broadcasting in the United States of America, changing times. And this is an attack on Big Bird, folks, Sesame Street.
To public safety of the country, Congressman Murkowski has argued that public broadcasting stations save lives. Could you respond to these concerns?
The NPR CEO said cutting NPR will be a risk to public safety. I am not sure how NPR helps the public safety of our country, but I do know that NPR, unfortunately, has become really just a propaganda voice for the left. Just a few examples for you. In 2020, NPR refused to cover the Hunter Biden laptop scandal in the run-up to the election. They said their assertions don't amount to much, writing they did not want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. That does not sound like an unbiased opinion. That sounds like a partisan opinion to me. And this is a taxpayer-funded organization. In 2018, that same CEO that you're talking about called the president in the Oval Office, who nearly 80 million Americans elected, she called him racist, shared a photo of herself wearing a Biden for President campaign hat, serves on the board of a Soros-funded activist group. In 2020, PBS's White House correspondent at the time characterized President Trump's speech then at Mount Rushmore as a love letter to white resentment, promoting the myth of America. In 2017, PBS devoted an entire panel talking about what it means to be woke and white privilege. In 2023, PBS's Washington Week Roundtable covered up Joe Biden's clear mental divide. That's actually quite the clip. I would encourage all of you to look at it. These are not honest news organizations. These are partisan, left-wing outlets that are funded by the taxpayers. And this administration does not believe it's a good use of the taxpayers' time and money. Ed Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. I want to ask you about the Federal Reserve. So does the president believe that the slightly restrictive monetary policy stance right now, could that cause an economic slowdown? And if he does believe that, when?
What pause are you referring to?
No, could the stance of the monetary policy is slightly restrictive? Does the president believe that stance, the slightly restrictive stance, could cause an economic slowdown in itself?
I haven't heard the president discuss that specifically, but what I do know in regards to the Federal Reserve is the president's been very transparent about his displeasure with both the policies and the management of the Fed, and he spoke about that to all of you pretty extensively in the Oval Office yesterday.
Yeah, and last month, one more if I could, last month the Canadian Prime Minister said the president had agreed to a July 21st deadline to sort of work towards a trade agreement. That's 4 days from now. Could there be a trade agreement with Canada in 4 days?
Well, look, we'll see. The trade team continues to be very active in our conversations and discussions with Canada. The president himself has said, unfortunately, our neighbors to the north have been pretty difficult to deal with when it comes to matters on trade. But in trade, generally speaking, as you know, 25 countries have received letters thus far from the president directly with his big, beautiful signature on them, from Japan to Korea, South Africa, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, just a few countries, and Canada also received a letter for 35%. With that said, if countries want to have legitimate further discussions, the Trump administration and the president's trade team are willing to have further talks, but these letters these countries have been receiving are the deals. And as the president has said, those deals will be made. They are tailor-made to each and every country based on the United States' concerns and what's in the best interest of the American worker and the American people.
We're so difficult. Because we just won't capitulate. What's wrong with you guys? Those you Kanakistanians. And the interesting thing is she says that they're tailored to each individual country. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to check this, but I think the United States has a trade surplus with Brazil. Let me just double check that. So this makes no sense whatsoever if that's the case. I'm pretty sure they do. Let me just, I saw this. Yeah, okay. And yet they put a 50% tariff on Brazil. But that's not because of the trade. It's because of the other stuff. Yeah. The United States has a trade surplus with Brazil. Was a 7.4 billion. Yeah, 49.7 billion total exports to Brazil. And imports from Brazil, just 42.3 billion, including services. The surplus was, oh yeah, so if you include the services, the surplus balloons to 28.6 billion. And total trade on that front, if you include all of that, goods and services, $103 billion. And they've had a consistent trade surplus with Brazil for over 15 years. Yet he imposes a 50% tariff on them too. It's not the trade. He's using trade as a weapon to achieve political goals. He doesn't like the government in power. He obviously doesn't like what's going on in Canada. He doesn't like the liberal government. He doesn't like liberalism. It's a war on liberalism. And it wouldn't matter if the conservatives are in power, I don't think that much, because, well, unless they really capitulate, bend the knee and just give him whatever he wants, like the whole country. But even a conservative government in Canada is, generally speaking, left of center compared to what he would want on the U.S. side. That's just the way the Conservative Party of Canada is, or has been. Although some of the people who have been elected of late in the Conservative Party are, more center, or maybe even right of center. So it's a tug of war over there, as it is in the Liberal Party too. There are conservatives inside the Liberal Party. They have people from various political stripes masquerading as liberals and conservatives in both parties. People don't realize that, but it's true. They do that to try to control each other. Okay, what else do we have for you tonight? We're kind of getting to the end of this whole thing with Trump today. And thank God for that. I'm really getting, honestly, a little bit tired of the whole Epstein thing. But we're going to be talking about it for quite a while because it's not going away. People are really upset about it. Oh, just a little clip off CNN tonight. This is Brian Stelter on there talking about the NPR, PBS, public broadcasting stuff. Yeah. It's strange. When you talk about public service, a lot of stuff when it comes to broadcasting, journalism, it isn't done in a lot of news organizations because it's profit driven. It might not be profitable to cover particular stories, or maybe even good for clicks or ratings. But, real genuine news organizations will cover a variety of news, regardless of its value in terms of dollars or ratings. Public broadcasting is really supposed to be about that. But end of an era, being acknowledged on CNN.
Not happening now.
No, this is the end of a publicly funded media era. This dates back to the days of black and white television. Back in the 60s, Congress saw a value for PBS and NPR, but no more. As a result of this rescission, radio and TV stations will have to lay off staffers and cut back on programming. Some smaller stations will suffer more than bigger stations, right? Popular shows like Daniel Tiger's.
Not happening now.
Yeah, well, different times. Media fractioned, like it's split apart. It's when I grew up, we didn't have cable. We had bunny ears on the TV. We got 4 channels. Now we have 20,000. Like literally, you can get TV systems with 20,000 channels, with all the networks, all the specialty programs, movies on demand, internet, on almost infinite amount of programming available on demand through the internet, online. And then, phones in everybody's pockets with cameras, able to live stream from wherever you are, where, just a few decades ago, you had to have a microwave or satellite truck to do live feeds from various news events, breaking news. And now everybody's got a satellite truck in their pocket, right? Like literally, so that you can feed live video out, and we use that material right here. Everybody is now a citizen journalist, so maybe the need for public broadcasting and that kind of journalism has been diminished. Everybody out there has a voice, but I'm not sure we're getting better quality or better service. We're certainly getting a lot more volume of material. I'm not sure that people are better served by it. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. These are complex questions open for broader discussion, and maybe we'll get into more of that again on another program. We do talk about it from time to time here, don't we? Yeah, we do. So that brings us back to what's been going on in Kanakistan. And today, Mark Carney met with over 250 First Nations leaders at the Major Projects Summit in Gatineau, Quebec, to address concerns over the controversial Bill C-5, the Building Canada Act. The legislation passed in June allows the government to fast-track major infrastructure projects like mines, ports, and pipelines by bypassing existing laws, sparking backlash from Indigenous leaders who say their rights were sidelined. And of course, when it passed, we also saw who supported it, the Conservatives. But then they came out after voting in favor of it to criticize Carney for what he was doing, saying that the reason they need the legislation is because the Liberals put all these other laws in place, and they need the legislation to do an end run around the other legislation that they have put in place. But they approved it. They voted for it, I think for a variety of reasons. Some of them genuine, some of them, well, I think maybe some of their comments afterward were a little disingenuous, politically motivated. Anyway, Carney opened this summit at the Canadian Museum of History, promising wealth and prosperity for generations through partnerships with First Nations, citing the Indigenous-owned Cedar LNG project in British Columbia as a model. But his remarks met mixed reactions today from Assembly of First Nations leaders, including National Chief Cindy Woodhouse Nepanak, who emphasized that First Nations consent is not optional, demanding explicit amendments to ensure free, prior, and informed consent. Let's go to a little bit of what Carney had to say today. We'll bring you a little bit of a sample of his remarks. And here we go. Prime Minister Carney.
And I would like to take a moment to acknowledge
the many First Nations that have been impacted by the devastating wildfires. I would also like to, if I may, if you'll indulge me, to compliment my colleagues, Ministers Chartrand, Alte, Golmasti, Minister Olszewski, who've worked tirelessly to help provide and work with First Nations to combat these fires and protect our people. There are multiple leaders who could not be here today due to the fires. But my commitment, our commitment, is to make sure that they are engaged and included in the conversations as we move forward. We'll also be launching a regional dialogue and a consultation process that will provide further opportunity for input and feedback. So, today is about the future of our economies, or our economies, and how we weave them together so that they're stronger together. How we can build a new economy together. An economy that moves from reliance to resilience. We have too much reliance on a certain foreign market. We have too much reliance on certain commodities. We can build resilience, but we can only build resilience together. We have to move from division to unity and move from operating in silos into partnerships. Now, in that discussion, we will, of course, discuss, as some of you did yesterday, the One Canadian Economy Act, and particularly the Building Canada Act, what it means, how we bring it to life in the right way. And I think that's the first point I really want to emphasize, is that this act is only a way of starting a conversation and starting a process. And we define that process going forward. But what it could do is enable Canada to build big things that will connect and transform our national economy. Create great careers, not just jobs, but careers for the people that we serve, and provide the resources for health, for education, and social services that our people deserve. It's about giving ourselves more than any foreign government can ever take away. It's about controlling our economic destiny together. With this legislation, the word nation carries more than one meaning. Building Canada projects, national projects in the national interest, will build our national economy through Indigenous equity and full participation, equity participation and resource management. Projects built with Indigenous partners, with Indigenous communities. And the point is, one of the points is that the economic value of these projects will be shared with First Nations as partners. You will help build the prosperity of your communities for generations to come. By moving forward together, we can write a new chapter. We together can write a new chapter in the relationship between the Government of Canada and First Nations. And those aren't just words. This isn't an aspiration. This is the law. This is the law as it is written. The plan is embedded in the law itself. In many respects, this is the first federal legislation to put Indigenous economic growth at its core. We now have the opportunity to realize it. So today we're going to discuss how we can do this together, particularly by hearing directly from you about what you want to build, how you want to build, to help build our nations. Ishkode.
Okay, so those are actually very important words, and this is because Canada is not the United States, and our approach to dealing with these kinds of nation-building issues is different and has been, especially since 1867. You see, what Carney is talking about here is he's recognizing that, hey, First Nations have a place at the table, and it's embedded in Canadian law. So what they say is just as important as what the federal government has to say. The federal government can't just ram stuff through. You need First Nations approvals. And he's recognizing that. On the US side, they've been doing things a little bit different since 1776. And what they're employing down there, especially right now with Trump in office, is something that could be referred to as unitary executive theory, which is to say that it's concentrating more and more power right in the White House, and it's less and less of a democracy and more of a unitary executive republic, with Trump ruling with a Sharpie through executive order and just getting stuff done, pulling the power in, purging political opponents, removing opposition politically, and executing what someone might say, since the election itself viewed by some as a democratic coup of sorts by the Trump administration, taking power, and then now he's got the power. He can make stuff happen just with the stroke of a Sharpie. But in Canada, we don't do it that way. We have the provinces, and they have their areas of jurisdiction, and we have the federal government, and it has its areas of jurisdiction and its powers. And then you have the First Nations, and all three have to work together, find some way to compromise and collaborate and cooperate. And if you can't get the three working together, it's really hard to do anything. That's why from the US side, some people are saying, you don't have a real country. You can't get anything done. Your government is ineffective. It's toothless. It has no spine. You can't just rule. So therefore, in their view, it's an unconquered, unceded country, and the federal government has no jurisdiction, no authority. It's all fake because we don't rule. It's unconquered, essentially, is what the critics of the government are indirectly and inadvertently saying. But on the US side, you get more conflict. Over here, we work toward cooperation, and if we don't get it, then things don't get done necessarily, maybe not as quickly, or maybe this is the point is, it's a different approach, and you need everybody to work together, and that's exceedingly difficult unless you're facing some sort of a external threat from like maybe another country or a neighbor that might want to annex you, in which case people kind of sit back and go, gee, well, maybe we should be working together a little bit more. Well, I don't know exactly how all the First Nations leaders feel about this, but we're about to find out, because this is what they had to say during their address after all of this afternoon.
Good afternoon. I am honored to be here on this host territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people, and to be joined by my brothers and sister from Treaty 6 and Treaty 8 territories. We're here to provide comment on Bill C5 and the ongoing, as we speak, Prime Minister's First Nations Summit currently taking place in Gatineau, Quebec. I haven't personally attended this gathering, but I have spoke to various leadership. What I have been hearing from that First Nations leadership is not positive. It is not, according to their words, consultation. It's not even engagement. So this press conference is to share with you a perspective from First Nations leadership, rights holders, people who represent the grassroots and communities across this country and for you to hear their perspective on what has taken place here in Ottawa.
And if they can't get these guys on board, there ain't going to be no pipelines. And if there's no pipelines, Alberta's going to say, screw you, Canada. And then they're going to break away. And I'm just saying, you got to get everybody on the same page.
With that, I hand it over to leadership.
I am Chief Gary Lehman from Beaver Lake Cree Nation in Treaty 6 territory. Will we be introducing ourselves?
You go.
Okay. We are here as sovereign treaty nations, not stakeholders, not lobbyists. Our treaties are not symbolic. They are living, binding agreements between nations. Bill C-5, the so-called One Canadian Economy Act, was rammed through Parliament without our free, prior, and informed consent. That is a violation of constitutional and international law. We stand here today on the strength of our ancestors as sovereign treaty nations with responsibilities rooted in sacred agreements with the Crown. I speak today not only as a chief, but as a treaty holder, entrusted with upholding our responsibilities to the land, our people, and the sacred treaty relationship. I'm also here to speak for the unborn, the water and the lands that we have a sacred relationship to ensure we speak for them. Our treaties are not symbolic. They are foundational constitutional agreements. We did not cede our lands nor our authority to govern ourselves. We are here to make it clear. We oppose the so-called First Nations Summit with Prime Minister Carney regarding Bill C-5, the One Canadian Economy Act. This summit does not reflect proper treaty-based engagement, nor does it uphold the honor of the Crown.
Good afternoon. My name is Chief Phyllis Whitford. I'm with the Ochese First Nation in Alberta. I am also a part of the Treaty 6 territory. I again acknowledge that we are here in Algonquin territory. I wanted to speak on a couple matters. One, needing to reiterate that we are here for the purpose of our children, for the purpose of our families, the purpose of our determining our, a future for the unborn. Just a few things I wanted to reiterate. One of them being the challenges that led to coming to this summit and the way it was organized. The meeting was organized last minute. The meeting, it also had no meaningful consultation with any of the treaty chiefs across the nation. We were not invited through appropriate protocols. Instead, groups have been handpicked. From what we see and from what we hear, this is a predetermined process. A process that is disrespectful, top-down, and divided Indigenous leaders by privileging some voices over others. This summit is a political theater, last-minute invitations, last-minute agendas. No advisors have been allowed. And in closing my remarks, I just want to say that the chiefs across this table have communicated, have had continuous dialogue to ensure that our voices are heard, our children's future is protected, and that we continue to protect our inherent treaty rights. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Chief Vernon Watchmaker from Kahiwan Cree Nation in Alberta, Treaty 6. I'm glad to be here today. I want to give an acknowledgement to Senator Prosper for providing us the time to, I guess, express our concerns and being there, as, lending his time the way people that are here in Ottawa, the MPs, to have the time for us to properly listen to our concerns the way it should be. I just want to bring up some concerns regarding C5, the One Canadian Economy Act. This bill claims to include First Nations in a unified economy, but in reality, it undermines treaty and inherent rights by assimilating us into a system we did not create or consent to. It also centralizes economic decision-making in Ottawa while sidelining treaty nations' jurisdictions and economies. The legislation frames us as stakeholders rather than sovereign partners. This is unacceptable. Bill C5 centralizes power in Ottawa, lets cabinet override environmental laws, and ignores treaty and inherent rights. That is not modernization. It is colonization in 2025. As well, removing the Indian Act from Schedule 2 does not fix this bill. FPIC is still absent, environmental protections remain vulnerable, and Canada can still override our jurisdiction under the guise of national interest. This legislation creates regulatory chaos. It will lead to more court battles, not fewer. It'll scare away investors because it strips away legal certainty. As well, the danger of legitimizing a flawed process as we are currently in. Participating in this summit would lend legitimacy to an illegitimate process. The Crown is attempting to fast-track policy that impacts us without our free, prior, and informed consent. That is built into the treaty-making process and under international law. A few invited voices do not speak for the treaty relationship or the diverse nations across Turtle Island.
Okay. So these obviously are dissenting voices. They do not represent all the voices, but they do reflect at least some of the opinions and some of the challenges before us as a nation, as nations within a nation. These are problems that are going to have to be solved. And I don't know if this legislation, as it passed, is going to be the answer or not. I was, frankly, as I said, the day that legislation passed, I was surprised that Carney got it done on the deadline that he established, where he promised to get that done as part of his election platform, and he did it with the support of the Conservatives. But now you need the First Nations on board. These guys, not representing all the First Nations. And today, Carney in his address addressing a much larger group. So I think we will see progress. And as a result, maybe the nation will stick together. Stick with me. I'll be right back after this.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. In other news, I guess what we should probably pivot to is what really maybe should even be like the top story of the night, just because it reflects on human achievement and people taking things to the extreme to prove what they are capable of, what humankind is capable of. Felix Baumgartner, though, tonight, daredevil, skydiver, no longer with us. He died while paragliding in Italy. This is a picture of him here. This is the Global News posting on this. It says here, extreme sportsman and adrenaline junkie Felix Baumgartner died on Thursday, today, while paragliding in Italy. Local police have confirmed he was 56 years old. Baumgartner, a famed base jumper and skydiver who is best known for his record-setting jump from the stratosphere down to Earth in 2012, was using his motorized paraglider when he reportedly became ill and lost control of the craft. So according to TMZ, citing local news outlets, he crashed into a hotel swimming pool and reportedly lost consciousness before going into cardiac arrest. He was declared dead at the scene. Reports say a woman was struck during the impact, and according to local media reports, she is in stable condition with non-life-threatening injuries. 5 days ago, Baumgartner shared on social media that he was in Italy on holiday. Yesterday, he posted a video of him working on his paraglider. But it was this jump right here that really made him world famous. I have video of all that to share with you tonight as we remember and reflect on the life of Felix Baumgartner. This did make an impression on me, and these days it's hard to make an impression on people in general because there is so much spectacular stuff going on all the time, whether it's another rocket launch with SpaceX or Jeff Bezos flying off into outer space. It's like it's just a routine thing almost now to see these things, or artificial intelligence and just technology being taken to extreme levels and people doing crazy extreme things. Even, when I was a kid, Evel Knievel doing daredevil jumps, that was spectacular. And his escapades always drew massive audiences on television and in the stands. But these days, when you watch extreme sporting events, young guys out there doing crazy tricks on motorcycles that make what Evel Knievel did back in his day look like, I don't know, like kids jumping over, just jumping up a ramp or something on the street in front of their house, which is what we all used to do to mimic or pay tribute to Evel Knievel. So when Felix Baumgartner did this, and there's so much going on in extreme sports, I think a lot of it, frankly, is crazy, and I don't even like it because people put their lives at risk, and that's what he did here too. But still, you gotta respect this guy and what he did. And here is, this is remembering what it looked like. I'm going to turn the audio down on this because it does have music that will get us a copyright strike. But this is looking back at what he did. This was an amazing feat. You got to have guts to do this, man. Do you remember this? To me, it was like yesterday. And there he is. Or was.
Really high. How small you are. I'm going over. Jump away.
Okay, I got to turn that music down. So there he is. And when he jumped, he began to accelerate, and he broke the sound barrier. First human being to ever do that while skydiving. There was a scene in a Star Trek movie with William Shatner. Was it, I think it was Star Trek Generations. They had a scene, and then he made it. And it was just an amazing feat. Anyway, in this scene, in the Star Trek film, William Shatner jumps out and does this space dive down to Earth. But the scene, much of it was, that whole section was cut out of the movie. But a little piece of trivia, I don't even know if it's worth telling you about, but I'm going to tell you anyway. There was an action figure that was produced of William Shatner in that spacesuit doing that space dive, and some of those action figures went out to stores and ended up on store shelves, but the scene never actually appeared in the movie. It was a later Star Trek movie where there was another similar scene that was shot again and was included in the movie, but the one with Shatner in that particular film, that section was chopped out of it. So anyway, but I have the action figure. That's why I'm telling you about it, and that's really why I know. So there's an action figure of William Shatner in that spacesuit from that movie, but it never actually happened in the movie. That makes that action figure a little bit collectible. But whatever. I don't care, Rick. I don't care about those movies. Well, I care. It's Star Trek. I'm a fan. What else? Okay, so also, I think, and I don't know why that just really resonated with me. It stuck with me what Baumgartner did with that jump. An amazing thing. What else do we have for you tonight? Okay, so we know Trump, not in the best of health. Way too much Diet Coke. So what does he tweet about? I mean, because, we've got all this other important stuff like floods in Texas and, wars in Ukraine and conflict in the Middle East. And, so why would you want to talk about something like Epstein? We have really, really important stuff to focus on, like how about sugar in Coke? So he says that he has been talking to Coca-Cola, and they have agreed, he says, to start putting real sugar back in Coke instead of high fructose corn syrup. He says, I've been speaking to Coca-Cola about using real cane sugar in Coke in the United States, and they have agreed to do so. I'd like to thank all of those in authority at Coca-Cola. This will be a very good move by them. You'll see, it's just better. Well, thank you, Donald Trump, for taking care of the important stuff. Coke has not acknowledged this. Even though he's saying it, they say, I know what you're talking about. Here. In fact, here, it's making headlines. This is the stuff we need to focus on, everybody. I'm just telling you. Look, here's this is global. Will Coca-Cola start using real sugar in its flagship drink? Trump says yes. Any switch from high fructose corn syrup in Coke sold in the United States would put Coca-Cola more in line with its practice in other countries, including Mexico and Australia, but it wouldn't affect Trump's drink of choice, Diet Coke, which uses aspartame. Yes, that's right, as a calorie-free beverage. And Trump has infused massive amounts of aspartame into his body over the years. A spokesperson for Atlanta-based Coca-Cola Company said in a statement that the company appreciated Trump's enthusiasm and promised that more details on new offerings within its products would be shared soon. Coca-Cola didn't elaborate, but the company has long indulged U.S. fans of cane sugar by importing glass bottles of Mexican Coke to the U.S. since 2005. Returning to sugar in U.S. production, meanwhile, might affect the nation's corn farmers, whose yields are used in artificial sweeteners. And replacing, it says here, this is a quote, replacing high fructose corn syrup with cane sugar doesn't make sense, Corn Refiners Association President and CEO John Bode said in a statement. President Trump stands for American manufacturing jobs, American farmers, and reducing the trade deficit. Replacing high fructose corn syrup with cane sugar would cost thousands of American food manufacturing jobs, depress farm income, and boost imports of foreign sugar, all with no nutritional benefit. So it's sugar wars on the Coke front. I have just my personal anecdotal experience and my personal opinion. I think the cane sugar is better. I think it tastes better. I think it is better. It's probably better for you because high fructose corn syrup is sort of like sugar, high test sugar. That stuff, man, it is wicked. You don't need to use nearly as much of it, I don't think. It just seems to be more potent. The industry will tell you otherwise, and the corn farmers will tell you otherwise. Yeah, I think that the cane sugar probably is healthier. The high fructose corn syrup, the reason I say that is I think the high fructose corn syrup is just syrup, and this is me editorializing, is just way more refined. And the more refined the sugar is, I think the harder it is for your body to process it. And I just sort of stopped drinking Coca-Cola quite a while back. I used to drink way too much of it. And I've just recently started drinking some of this Werner's ginger ale, and it has the high fructose corn syrup in it. Don't recommend you do it. Probably a bad thing. No, it's definitely a bad thing. Don't do it. Bad news. So I have to just taper off this Werner's ginger ale stuff, but I really like it. It tastes good. I hadn't had any soda at all in probably a couple of years. I just kind of got on this Werner's ginger ale binge, and they're not paying me, by the way. This is not paid product placement. I just like it more now than I ever did before. Also, just before we move on too far, the U.S. has a new assessment on the bombing of Iran. NBC exclusive reports. So we're going to share it with you here and give them full attribution and credit for this. New U.S. assessment finds American strikes destroyed only one of 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Only one of 3. Out of Washington, here's what they're saying. One of 3 nuclear enrichment sites in Iran struck by the United States last month was mostly destroyed, not obliterated, setting work there back significantly. But the 2 others were not as badly damaged and may have been degraded only to a point where nuclear enrichment could resume in the next several months if Iran wants it to, according to a recent U.S. assessment of the destruction caused by the military operation. 5 current and former U.S. officials familiar with the assessment told NBC News. This is their report tonight. The assessment, part of the Trump administration's ongoing efforts to determine the status of Iran's nuclear program since the facilities were struck, was briefed to some U.S. lawmakers, Defense Department officials, and allied countries in recent days. 4 of those people said. NBC News has also learned the U.S. Central Command had developed a much more comprehensive plan to strike Iran that would have involved hitting 3 additional sites in an operation that would have stretched for several weeks instead of a single night, according to a current U.S. official and 2 former U.S. officials. President Trump was briefed on that plan, but it was rejected because it was at odds with his foreign policy instincts to extract the United States from conflicts abroad, not dig deeper into them, as well as the possibility of a high number of casualties on both sides. One of the current officials and one of the former officials said. So Trump says the program was obliterated, everything was obliterated, not according to this newest, most up-to-date assessment. The other downside to everything that has come about because of the attack on Iran is that now Iran is refusing to allow any inspections at all from the International Atomic Energy Agency. So now all you can do is hope, pray, and you probably don't have much, if any, trust in what Iran is saying about its nuclear program, or if it even exists, or if it does or it doesn't. I would say it's pretty clear that it does. In what state, we don't know. And not only are we not able to trust, we're not able to verify now either, which frankly, in my editorial opinion, it puts the world in a much more dangerous position than it was before the bombing. Because now Iran is even less cooperative. So I don't know. Such things are working out quite the way that we're being told they're working out. Now, I just want to do a little bit of a look in the rear view mirror here tonight, because I just like a little bit of nostalgia, as you know. I do like history, and I like recent history, and I like pop culture, and I like looking back at things that just allow us to reflect a little bit and just get a little bit sentimental too. Here's a Canadian Tire ad that I just came across today on a Facebook scroll. And what is it showing us? Showing us what prices were like in 1974. Playmaker. Oh, that was, do you remember Playmaker? That was a brand, a Canadian Tire brand, if I remember correctly, back in the 70s. Playmaker senior hockey skates. $17.88. Regular, $19.96 for men's hockey skates. And snowmobile paint, 99 cents. A can of paint for 99 cents. Do you know what a can of paint costs today at the hardware store? Enamel? I mean, you could spend $10. What does that tell you about the value of the dollar? What has happened? It's all relative, though, isn't it? Because, of course, today we're working for higher hourly wages. But in terms of actual value, are we keeping up? I'm not so sure. I think we're behind based on actual purchasing power, how many dollars you have versus what the prices are out there. I think we're kind of behind, maybe a little bit these days. I'd have to do an assessment, a real technical assessment, to really tell you for sure. Hockey sticks, $1.29. You can get a hockey stick for $1.29. Today, $299,000. No, seriously, what does a hockey stick cost? Probably anywhere from $20 to $100, depends on what you buy. I don't know what. I haven't purchased a hockey stick since I was a youngster. Hockey pants, $9.44. Elbow pads for $3.57. Oh, remember these old mouth guards? The ones that buckle up, they come right here in your mouth like that, and they had like a piece of sponge just right there. That's what would protect your mouth. They didn't even have visors back then. Screw the eyes, just protect the teeth. Oh man, so many injuries back then. But you had to be really tough to play. This is bad. I had a mouth guard like that when I was a kid. I played hockey for a lot of years when I was a youngster, like so many other Canadian kids. Suspenders for your hockey pants, and there's a goalie stick for $1.57, a replacement blade. That would be for street hockey, obviously, the plastic thing. Played a lot of street hockey. And I remember in the, you'd go out there and the weather would be cold and you'd go out and play road hockey after school and you'd play until the sun went down and you'd come in, you'd be so hungry because you burned off so much energy and so many calories. I think of all the running around we did back then. And boy, I wish I had half that energy back today. And I wish I could afford some of the stuff that's out there. And a handy fiberglass repair kit to fix your car the improper way. Oh yeah, and look at the style of the font on the fiberglass packaging. Very disco-like, right? Fiberglass repair kit. It's groovy. Oh man, you can still buy this stuff, obviously. Pretty toxic, the fumes that come off it. And I've used a lot of that stuff over the years working on cars. And I'm really bad because I just use my bare hands, which is probably really bad. So I'm surprised my hands are still attached to my arms. They haven't shriveled up and just fallen off. 3 body filler applicators, 47 cents. That's pieces of plastic. Regular 69 cents. What a deal. What a deal. Snowmobile paid for 99 cents. So there you are. That's what it was like on September the 23rd, 1974, as advertised in the Winnipeg Free Press. Does that satisfy your sentimental urges? Is that the right word? No. It makes me feel better looking back at some of that stuff. Sometimes it makes me feel worse. I do yearn for yesteryear. I really, really do. But everything is what you make of it. And that being said, we're down near the bottom of the hour, and I'm going to wrap it up for tonight, folks. We're going to be back tomorrow night. And I think that we'll probably pivot back to I'm working on some stuff, but I've been really, really busy trying to pay the bills, doing other work too. So it's been a little slow in coming, some of the investigative stuff that I've been working on. But I do have some material in the works. Hopefully, maybe tomorrow I'll be able to reveal some of that. And if all goes well, we'll also have a Maverick Midnight Matinee feature film to share with you on Friday night. So I look forward to seeing everybody back here again tomorrow. See you all then. Love you guys. Catch you on the flip side. Take it away, Maverick and the News Brothers. Little nostalgia. American Muscle style.
She's sitting in the driveway all dressed in black. Got that slick thing, you know she got the knack. Chrome glimmers in the moonlight, like a star on the rise. When I slide behind the wheel, I feel alive. Oh, I can't deny, got the little black vest, she's my midnight ride. Rolling down the highway with my girl by my side. Fast as a whisper, smooth as a dream. In my little black van, we're a rock and roll team. Leather seats and a rumble that shakes the ground. With the top down low, we're lost in the sound. That engine growls like a lion's roar. Every mile we take, I just want more. Black face, she's my midnight ride. Rolling down the highway with my girl by my side. Fast as a whisper, smooth as a dream. In my little black van, we're a rock and roll team. Oh, the world slows down when we hit that street. The wind in our hair can't be beat. With the guitar laying under the stars so bright. In my little black van, everything feels right.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.